Ever heard of the reverse attraction paradox? It's an intriguing concept. The very phrases you think will impress a younger woman often push her away, while counterintuitive ones spark instant attraction. Surprisingly, these are the exact phrases younger women secretly love to hear from older men. I stumbled upon this phenomenon last winter when my friend David, a 68-year-old professor, called me at 2 a.m. laughing. "You won't believe what just happened," he said. "Remember all those pickup lines and techniques I've been obsessing over?" Well, I accidentally said the complete opposite, and it worked better than anything I've ever tried. That call kicked off a 6-month journey of research. I analyzed countless successful age gap relationships, consulted relationship psychologists, and uncovered surprising patterns no one seems to talk about. What we found challenges nearly everything you think you know about connecting with younger women. In fact, the most powerful phrases, the ones that create genuine, lasting attraction, are probably not what you'd expect. And in the next few minutes, I'll share exactly what they are, starting with one word that changed everything for David. But before I reveal his discovery, let's address something that might make you uncomfortable. Most advice about age gap dating gets it completely wrong. It focuses on superficial things, your money, your status, or worst of all, trying to appear younger. A groundbreaking study by Cambridge University's psychology department flipped this narrative on its head. Analyzing over 2,000 successful age gap relationships, researchers found something startling. The strength of these relationships wasn't tied to wealth, looks, or status. Instead, it hinged on specific communication patterns that fostered deep emotional connections. Here's where it gets fascinating. David's late-night revelation perfectly aligned with what these researchers spent years uncovering. He'd unknowingly tapped into something psychologists call the authentic age bridge, a dynamic where age becomes irrelevant because of how you communicate, and it all started with a simple misunderstanding in a coffee shop. Picture this. David is at his usual spot, reviewing work papers, when he overhears a young woman at the next table struggling with her business plan. His first instinct is to offer advice, drawing on 40 years of experience, but then he stops himself. "I was tired of being seen as the old guy with advice," David later told me, "so I tried something different." Instead of sharing his expertise, he simply asked, "What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?" The next few minutes shifted everything David thought he knew. Julia, the young woman, didn't just respond. She lit up. She outlined her startup's challenges on a napkin, her professional demeanor melting into genuine excitement. When another customer mistook them for father and daughter, Julia didn't even flinch, continuing her passionate explanation about market validation. The most powerful moment came when she paused mid-sentence and said, "You know what's crazy? Every investor I've met tries to solve my problems. You're the first person who's helped me solve them myself, just by listening." This aligns perfectly with what the Cambridge study calls the curiosity paradox. Researchers found that older men who ask thoughtful, open-ended questions are rated 7 times more attractive than those who offer unsolicited advice. Why? Because it creates intellectual intimacy, a connection that transcends age. David's real breakthrough, however, wasn't just about asking questions. It happened when Julia mentioned feeling overwhelmed by negative investor feedback. Instead of offering solutions, David said, "You know what stands out to me, the way you adapt your pitch after every rejection. That kind of resilience is rare." Julia's reaction: silence followed by tears. "Nobody's ever noticed that," she said. "Everyone just tells me I'm doing great or that I look confident." This moment illustrates what psychologists call recognition chemistry. Younger women aren't looking for generic compliments from older men. They crave understanding. When someone truly sees the qualities they value most, it creates an emotional bridge, but there's an even deeper principle here. Later in the conversation, David made what he called the biggest mistake that worked. Instead of focusing on her current struggles, he shifted to her future. "You know what would be fascinating?" he asked. 5 years from now, when you're teaching other entrepreneurs how to handle rejections like you do, the insights you're gaining now will be invaluable." Notice what he didn't do. He didn't talk about his own plans or try to insert himself into her story. He painted a vision of her future, empowering her growth. Studies show that when older men create independent future projections, attraction deepens naturally. Julia's response: she leaned forward and said something unexpected. "You know what scares me about older men? This could have been a tricky moment, but David didn't get defensive. Instead, he said, "Honestly, I've worried about the age gap too. There's always this pressure to prove I'm not too old, to show I'm still relevant." He thought he'd said too much, but Julia surprised him. "That's the most honest thing anyone over 50 has ever said to me," she replied. This demonstrates what psychologists call confident vulnerability. It's not about exposing your insecurities, but being secure enough to acknowledge them. While many older men hide their age-related concerns, David's openness built trust. Now, you might wonder how to apply these principles. Here's the key. It's not about following scripts or memorizing lines. It's about authenticity, genuine curiosity, real recognition, honest vulnerability. One crucial lesson from David's journey: his coffee shop conversation with Julia didn't lead to dating. Instead, they became close friends. Julia even introduced him to her single friends, saying, "You need to meet this man who actually listens." This gets to the heart of what the Cambridge study discovered. The most attractive quality in an older man isn't his wealth, looks, or status. It's his ability to create genuine connections without an agenda. So here's my challenge to you. In your next conversation with a younger woman, forget everything you think you should say, be curious. Notice what others overlook, share insights that matter, and most importantly, be authentically you. True connection starts there.